The cost of mobile internet has decreased in Georgia. It is clear from the report of the Communications Commission as of February 2021, the average cost of 1 gigabyte of the internet on the market is 80 tetri, which is 45% less than the price in the same period of 2020, which was 1.45 Georgian lari.
In 2020, 169 tenants exited from Tbilisi high streets with a total area of 11,000 square meters. Colliers International reports 57% of this space was located on Chavchavadze and Aghmashenebeli avenues. Dunkin' Donuts, Finca Bank, OVS Kids, Parfua, Flo are among tenants who closed a branch on high streets in Tbilisi. Not all of them were closed due to the pandemic.
The value of new mortgages issued decreased by 22.8% in the period of 1st till 27th of April compared to 2019. TBC Capital reports. In addition, Tbilisi's residential real estate transaction displayed an 9.2 increase in the period of from the 1st till 22nd April relative to 2019.
Fitch Ratings has affirmed JSC, Georgian Oil and Gas Corporation's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at BB with a negative outlook and simultaneously withdrawn from the ratings. The negative outlook mirrors that of Georgia as per Fitch's government-related entities rating criteria. The ratings have been withdrawn for commercial reasons. Fitch will no longer provide ratings or analytical coverage of GOGC.
This is the Checkpoints, hosted and co-authored by Lena Kvanchilashvili and myself. I'm Georgi Sakadze, and we have gathered here in Forbes Studio to give you more information on business and economics.
Sunday, 10 p.m. and let us start with Georgia debuting at Kearney's Global Services Location Index 2021 and taking 19th place among the top-ranked countries. GSLI is a biennial ranking published by leading global management consulting organization Kearney. For 2021's edition of the ranking, 60 countries were assessed in 47 measurements grouped in 4 main categories: financial attractiveness, people skills and availability, business environment, and digital resonance.
That's what the first report said about Georgia. Georgia is the crossroads of Europe and Asia and posts competitive rankings on financial attractiveness, workforce skills, and business environment. And let us explain that the GSLI has emerged as the business world's leading benchmark of national competitiveness in the dynamic tax service sector. The credibility of the index is grounded in Kearney's experience as a global authority on international services, networks, and supply chains. What is at the cornerstone of Kearney's is that even the automation has transformed service operations, human capability has remained a central factor. Increasingly, the presence of concentrated digital-savvy talent is a key differentiator between nations, regions, and cities, viewing for consideration as business service locations.
It seems we will be talking more about this new index in more detail with the stakeholders. Meanwhile, let us review what Colliers International has provided on the reliance of Georgian economy on tourism. The study maintains that the reliance of the Georgian economy on tourism has increased significantly in the last couple of years. In 2019, tourism made up 8.1% of the gross domestic product of Georgia.
Let us mention that Georgia mainly receives tourists mostly from neighboring countries. Leading countries by the number of tourists in Georgia are Russia, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, and the EU countries collectively. Georgian government has officially opened the air border to our neighboring countries. Apart from this, Georgia opted to lift air travel restrictions for fully vaccinated travelers. All visitors, all of them, who have received 2 doses of any COVID-19 vaccine are permitted to enter the nation without producing a negative PCR test.
And who are these countries? Let's look at the chart. By April 2021, Israel remains outperformer with more than 60% of the total population who received at least one vaccine dose. Looking at our neighboring countries, Turkey has the highest performance by 15% of total population and Russia by only 8%. As for Georgia, around 35,000 people have received one dose of COVID-19 vaccine, which is only 1% of the total population.
Yes, and one more fact, Georgian Civil Aviation Agency has published a new flight schedule for summer 2021. Flights from Tbilisi International Airport will be performed to 24 destinations. 4 from Kutaisi International Airports, fully covered by Wizz Air. 6 from Batumi Airport. It should be also mentioned that infrastructure of Georgian airports is being expanded in 2021. Batumi International Airport will have capacity to serve from 1,200,000 to 1.5 million passengers, whereas Kutaisi International Airport is tripping its capacity up to 1,000 passengers per hour. These changes create supporting preconditions for recovering tourism without disruptions.
Colliers, Georgia has also prepared the tourism sector revenue recovery projection. According to this proposed model, the effects of the pandemic will last for about 4 or 5 years. The recovery will be gradual, and the 2019 performance is expected to be achieved or restored by 2024.
Yes, and I think we have to mention also that vaccination has started in Georgia, but despite the fact vaccines are available, at this moment only around 47,000 people have taken one dose of vaccine, which is just 1%, maybe a bit more, of the total population. This argument is also in the scope of Colliers International, isn't it?
Yes, and based on this argument, Colliers International projects that the number of international visitors will be recovered by 30% compared to 2019. Colliers thinks this will be mainly at the expense of the summer season. In 2022, a higher rate of tourism recovery is expected in accordance to an increased number of vaccinated people, and in Colliers' opinion, it will reach 60% of 2019 performance. A full recovery will not be possible either this year, as the full end of pandemic is still not expected. By 2023, Colliers thinks that international tourism will start approaching 2019 results, which will be fully overachieved by 2024.
Yeah. And Colliers International also mentions that domestic tourism has a small role in the sector overall and takes up a mere 28.5%. This is a percent of local tourists, is the total number of tourists staying at hotel-type accommodations.
You're totally right, and with these numbers, Georgia appears in the lower right corner of the graph. It's close to Greece. It is expected that the crisis will have a significant effect on the hotel industry and the economy in general for countries in the same category, and the recovery period will be extensive.
And Colliers International argues that the trajectory of domestic tourism change is significantly different from international tourism.
And it is logical, since due to the restricted mobility between countries, tourists are choosing and will choose local destinations for tourism purposes. In Georgia, domestic tourist visits have decreased just by 10% in 2020 year on year. Therefore, Colliers International expects that in the upcoming years, the results of local tourism will not change as dramatically as in the case of international tourism. We should consider the first 2 months of winter in Georgia 2021, when ski resorts were fully closed and the curfew was in force. At least these 2 months of closure will negatively affect on the total revenues from local tourism too, although still Colliers International predicts that this year 80% of 2019 results will be restored. And as for upcoming 2022-2024, domestic tourism ratio will be stabilized at the rate of 2019.
Yeah, and one more point here is that Colliers International has also taken into account the announced forecasts of Fitch, IMF, and Geostat, Georgian Statistics Department. Economic growth in 21-24 years. So the IMF has decreased projection for 2021 GDP growth to 3.5%. However, projections for following years looks quite optimistic still, and so far growth rate ranges from 5% up to 6%. As a result of the weighting, the forecasts of international and local tourism projected economic growth. Colliers has obtained that revenues in the tourism sector are expected to be recovered in 2021 by 43%, in 2022 by 73%, and in 2023 by 93%.
And just in 2024, Georgia will exceed the 2019 performance, which unfortunately means some couple years that have been lost due to pandemic. But meanwhile, Georgi, the first tourists have really appeared in Georgia. Our viewers and followers can see by themselves right now.
It's now about 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and a few tourists are to be seen in one of the most active tourist destinations in the city. Of course, their number is nothing compared to what we remember before the pandemic, but also I must say that most of them are from the neighboring countries. But appearance of tourists is already a good and positive story because sooner or later life will return to normal. But today we can definitely say that tourists returned to the Georgia.
The first tourists appeared on the streets of Tbilisi. There is only one tourist on the red double-decker tourist bus so far, who says that they start their journey early in the morning to see the city and sightsee before the curfew. For the locals, this presents hope that the tourism sector will soon revive. Cafes and bars are slowly opening up, preparing to entertain guests. Souvenir shops have also started to function, albeit with reduced staff and financial losses. Expectations for the appearance of tourists on the streets have definitely increased. It's been a few days since I arrived, and because I want to get to see everything, I book everything in advance and plan for morning activities. I would like to point out that everyone follows safety norms as much as possible. It would be good to have a little more time during the day, but we still managed to get around the city and sightsee. According to the Information Analytical Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, in March 2021, 55,907 visits were made to Georgia by international visitors. Among them, 51,255 were tourist visits. Compared to March 2020, the change in tourist visits stand at minus 64.4%. 82.4% of international visitors came from Europe, 1.1% came from the United States, and 2.5% from the Pacific and East Asia. These are the numbers. However, when walking down the street, you will easily notice that most of the tourists are still from neighboring countries. The increase in flow is facilitated by addition of flights. It is also a fact that some of the tourists did not know about the curfew when they arrived in the country. Otherwise, they say that they wouldn't have come. The problem is that tourists do not know where to get food on the weekends. Accordingly, restaurants and cafes are silently receiving visitors indoors. This way, businesses in crisis are trying to survive.
We do not have the tourism dynamics we wanted, but progress has been observed from the second half of March. Our tourism is dependent on the holidays of neighboring countries, for example, Ramadan. It is important to add more flights and have more tourists.
It is more difficult to find food than fit our schedules to the curfew, especially on the weekends. As for safety, I think the rules are followed everywhere and I'm not afraid to visit various places. This is just a small list of problems that hinder tourists, but there is interest in the country and the slightest easing of regulations might make it possible for people to start working and have a minimum income.
The main problem remains that we are closed on weekends. Tourists have repeatedly complained about this. Most visitors are low-budgeted tourists from post-Soviet countries. This is my sixth group since the touristic season started. There are many people interested in coming to Georgia. They love Georgia very much and are interested in Georgia, but the problem is in the curfew and the restrictions.
We are visiting for 5 days, and it would be good to have more time, for example, to see the views of the city in the evening. However, I will indeed come back here again to see more, especially the regions of Georgia. Despite these positive assessments, it must be said that with the possibility of tourism being more or less restored this year, there is a danger that the numbers will not equal to those of last year. Although the UN World Tourism Organization called 2020 the worst year in the history of tourism, it is also recently said that the forecasts for 2021 have deteriorated. The reason is the slow pace of vaccine production and the spread of new strains of the virus, which has led several countries to tighten regulations again. In Georgia, too, there is a talk of a third expected lockdown, but how much the private sector and the country in general will bear, we will find out later.
I think we should celebrate this fact, at least some elevation for the tourism industry, provided that these are vaccinated tourists, preferably with both shots already, or at least they have a valid test results of PCR.
I heard the celebration, right?
Yes. Why? You're against of the celebration?
Quite on the contrary, Georgi. I'm all up to it with an industry review for our viewers and followers, and that's Georgian wine. But before that, let's watch your interview with Bevri, the Bay Area's first Georgian restaurant famous for its hot gooey cheese bread, khachapuri, juicy and flavorful dumplings, khinkali, and of course Georgian wine. A very good example why such tourists are the best brand ambassadors for Georgia.
So, long time no see, my friend, and again and again, after our several phone and email conversation, finally you are again here, but now you are a part of the Forbes studio, so good to see you, Pavel.
Good to see you, Georgi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope that you, your family, your colleagues, your partners, you are all in good health. How was this pandemic here, first of all? For you, are you guys all safe? And maybe you are so lucky that you are vaccinated already.
Well, the year was definitely interesting. It was there was a lot of scare in the beginning, and we were very careful and like playing it safe for our personal reasons, obviously, and then. And business-wise, so we took care of our employees and our guests, and we took a good care.
Did you guys suspend your operations for a while, or how was it going, Pavel? Brief us. How was the previous year for Bevri?
So. End of March last year, so we were closed for a few days for in-house dining as well as takeout and delivery. Then we were allowed to open up for delivery and takeout. So that's what we did a few days later. So generally we run very safe operations anyway, but. We followed our state guidance on how to improve it further. Luckily, we didn't have to do much. Everything was pretty great. We opened for delivery and takeout, and then a few weeks later, I heard about an interesting program called Frontline Foods, which helped businesses, small businesses like restaurants, for example, to collect a little bit more orders. It's actually the other way around. So
it was our governmental program, Pavel, or
no, it's a non-profit program called Frontline Foods, which collects donations from people who would like to help businesses, and at the same time provide high quality nutritious food for frontline workers at hospitals. So there was a huge help for the business for us, and also we had really great feedback from the hospitals that we worked with. Because we focused on really high quality, nutritious, diverse meals for the hospitals that we cooked for.
Okay, so it means that by the end of the day, it was just for maybe a couple weeks that you were just closed totally, and the rest period you guys are operating. It's on front, it's delivery, and you were prepared for this service, Pavel, or it was some sort of challenging for your management to deal with it?
Well, we had to furlough a majority of the team, unfortunately, but we were able to adapt very quickly and change the operations to actually meet the new requirements, especially shifting from in-house plus delivery and takeout to just delivery and takeout. We had to think about how we improve our operational efficiency. I invest quite a lot into digitalizing everything, automating all sorts of operations, thanks to all the software that's been published. So we improved that even more. So we adopted a lot of technology that helped us reduce costs for delivery and takeout and things like that. So it worked pretty well.
Tell me, what is the situation nowadays? Today's period. I mean, we are in the end of April, in the beginning of May. Is it a similar period, which is quite it looks like that you guys are already in the post-pandemic situation and operating in a way like post-pandemic situation, or we are still in the middle of coronavirus crisis?
In terms of the restaurant, so we are fully open for outdoor and in partial indoor experience. Takeout and delivery is still high volume, and I think it will continue so. So we quite enjoy that side of business as well. So more and more people are more comfortable, and more people feel safer to go out and enjoy gorgeous Georgian food at the restaurant and drink all the wine and etc. So I can't really say if it's completely recovered or not. So it's really hard to estimate, especially in this business and with our profile of this unique cuisine for the area. So it's always been bumpy. I mean, in terms of number of guests and rating.
Tell me, where is Georgian cuisine nowadays after Beverly was opened? It's been a while, and I want to measure while listening to your response how about the measurement of awareness, Pavel. So where do we stand right now, and what Georgia can be proud of besides that we have origin cuisine, delicious so much, but at the same time with great help of investors and like you are. So just update us, where do we stand right now? How popular our cuisine is already?
Very. This is
Very
a short answer.
Sure.
So, if you remember when we met for the first time, I told you that our mission was to promote Georgian cuisine, Georgian wine, and overall Georgian culture here in California. And I think we're doing pretty well. So we caught attention of a few journalists, food critics, We did a few even TV programs, local TV programs, talking about Bevri and how our ambassadorship is going here in the area. So it's going pretty well. So more and more people are coming to us to just enjoy a glass of wine after a hard work day. If previously, when we just opened, it was like a unique experience, and only most adventurous guests were coming to explore new cuisines. Now it's more casual, so we are seeing more and more guests coming for lunch as well. And still people come. So what we noticed in the last few months, people started coming from different cities even, specifically to enjoy the Georgian food, coming from Seattle, which is about 2-hour flight from Los Angeles, and like even further, like San Diego. So people are coming, so they hear about us, about Georgian cuisine, they look at the photos, they look amazing. So I think it's getting more and more traction here.
Yeah, maybe this is like a part of the plan pushing you and your partners to expand the coverage of Bevri, and maybe it's going to be in some other places of California and other states. What do you think? What's your plans in this regard?
Absolutely. So we're thinking how we can expand further, so it's a huge undertaking, running a restaurant business, maintaining quality and expanding quickly. So these are like 3 different notions which we should be really careful about. If restaurants scaling quickly, especially like whether it be self-managed or through franchisees, so the quality like pretty much always goes down. So we don't want that. So we're really mindful about that. We are working on a few programs how to start geographical expansion here in the Bay Area, at least, like starting with San Francisco, San Jose, so the large cities nearby.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like expanding further across the state and the country, so we want to be really, really careful to maintain the same quality.
Listen, I want to put to the attention of our viewers, listeners, and followers a part of our private conversation, which should be, in my understanding, very much public, because you asked me about delivering the idea while you with your partners, you guys are still exploring an idea of organizing an internship program for cooks from Georgia, and to work at Bevri at least for 3 or maybe 12 months, however it's possible. And you fix your interest in regards of cooking schools who could introduce you some great local talents. Brief us more, Pavel, about this chance, which I assume it's going to be very popular, and your email will be full in the nearest day. So go ahead.
Great. So thank you, Georgi. And we always think about new ways to promote Georgian cuisine, Georgian winemaking, and general culture. So, and I'm always on lookout for new partners who are happy to join us. So as I told you, our guests are really fascinated by Georgian dishes. So we have a pretty well-established menu already. We do change it from time to time, but it's not enough, and it's like the way I feel it, because Georgia has so many different regions, and cuisine changes from one region to another. So I was thinking of ways how we can actually bring those varieties to Bevri and to our guests, to introduce those specific like hachapuris or khinkalis, or even any other dishes, to create even more fascination for the country. And so I was I was talking to some of our friends and then partners how we can do that. And one of the ideas that came up is organizing an internship program for cooks from Georgia, whether it be just students who are finishing the culinary school or just recent graduates, or even professional cooks coming like to work with us, to cook with us for 3 months, maybe more, and to establish this kind of exchange of experience, like bringing more culture, more Georgian culture to California, and then return getting this potentially interesting experience working in California.
You know, you asked me about, I remember one of our last conversations, that what, Georgi, do you think overall about this idea? And just to tell you the truth, I think it's going to be the best just to re-announce it, definitely. Speak with your partners, because I'm more than sure that it's going to be the great opportunity, and it's going to be definitely win-win situation, Pavel, for locals or for those even who are in US already, be honest. So you might cover not only Georgia itself and those who are planning still to come to US, but also those who are already in United States. So Beverly will definitely benefit of it, and Georgia will benefit as well. So it's a really win-win formula. So just go for it. And I know that as soon as you're going to be ready to announce the internship program, just give us a note to promote it as much as we can.
Great. Thank you so much, Georgi.
Yeah. Good luck to Beverly, and we'll wait for some news about expanding Beverly to have really Beverly in the United States.
For sure. Thanks so much, and thank you for your support.
Very interesting, Georgi, indeed. And now, as I have teased in before this interview, if we look at the newest figures provided by the National Wine Agency of Georgia, up to 19 million bottles of wine worth $44 million were exported from Georgia to 52 countries in the first quarter of 2021. 205 companies made wine exports in the first quarter. And what's more important, the growth trend of Georgian wine exports stands despite the pandemic. Here is our industry review for Georgian wine.
How effectively did Georgia complete vintage in 2020, and to what extent does Georgian wine have the potential to establish itself on the global market? What will change in 2021 vintage, and what are the priorities of Ministry of Agriculture for this year? Traditionally, let's crunch some numbers first. Up to 280,000 tons of grapes were processed in Georgia during the 2020 vintage, which is an outstanding record in the last 3 decades. The grapes were handed over to the vineries by 25,000 viticulturist farmers whose revenues exceeded 310 million lari. In January-October 2020, 53,371,000 liters of wine were exported, amounting to $163,119,000. The rate of wine exported in this period is 4.8% less than the export made in the same period of 2019. In particular, in January-October 2019, 56,085,000 liters of wine was exported. During wine vintage 2020, 175,000 tons of Rkatsiteli, 80,000 tons of Saperavi, 5,000 tons of Kakhetian green, 2,400 tons of Alexandrouli and Mujuretuli, and grapes of other varieties were processed. As for the list of top 5 wine exporting countries in 2020, they look like this: Russia, Ukraine, China, Poland, and Kazakhstan. The Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture positively assesses the 30-year record yield, but notes that the 2020 vine vintage was difficult for the state.
We understand that the demand has decreased not only in the Georgian industry, but also, in fact, in almost every leading country of winemaking. There were serious problems with processing, storing, and harvesting grapes globally. As for Georgia, the vintage year 2020 was one of the toughest periods for the state because we had an immense sense of social responsibility that we constantly mentioned during the vintage.
As for the representatives of large and small wineries, they said that 2020 was quite abundant in terms of yield, although the situation in the export and local markets still had a negative impact on the sector.
We had an increase in export, to be exact, a 10-12% increase. However, we also experienced a drop of almost 90% in the domestic market due to the fact that we were completely dependent on tourism and the HoReCa sector.
In 2020, Russia remained the leading export market with 32,742,000 liters exported out of Georgia. Market diversification is a problem that remains unresolved for companies this year, as in previous years.
I would say that this is absolutely necessary to diversify the markets. Georgia exports 100 million bottles and 65% of them go to one country as compared to the other 35. This proportion must change. Planning to work in potential strategic markets from year to year is important to change this proportion.
Shukman Wines, which combines wineries with cellars up to 120 hectares of vineyards and a wine complex with a yield up to 1,000 tons a year, says that Vintage 2020 helped advance not only wine companies, but also Kakheti as a region. Vintage 2020, despite the world pandemic, went really well. I think the results of 2020 vintage will provide benefits and positive results in the field of agriculture as a whole. Consequently, quite large sums of money have been mobilized in Kakheti, up to 300 million lari, which is very important for the development of the region. Let's look at Raja. In the Raja region, 2,400 tons of Alexandrouli and Mujuretuli were processed, which is the main base for the production of the famous appellation of origin wine, Khwanjkara. As for Rajuli wine, which unlike Kakhetian wine is not very popular in the markets in terms of visibility, some small wineries do not consider Russia as the main export market. They do not even export any wine at all to Russia and set their only market in no less than the United States of America. The reason is the production of high-quality wine.
We have high-quality wines, and therefore we are looking for markets where they pay a high price for wines such as the American market. Red Dry Alexandrian exported by us in previous months, and we continue to send more. Our Georgian wine keeps getting continuous positive feedback from the US.
Wine and viticulture, unlike other sectors, still manages to maintain market positions and sets a record of more than 30 years as evidenced by specific figures. Although, like in other sectors, there is still a decline in percentages in local and global markets. As for 2021, the ministry has already started working to ensure the organized wine vintage in 2021. In order to improve the quality of Georgian wine, within the framework of 2021, the control over the yield limit will be defined by the grape quality, and the specifications of the varieties of origin will be tightened. In addition, it is planned to conduct the harvest based on data of the Vineyard Cadastre program and to introduce an electronic program for managing the queues at the time of grape delivery. As Minister Davitashvili says, from 2021, the priority should be the quality of grapes and not the quantity.
And we have news about one of the major players maybe of the market, pioneers, to share with our viewers and followers. It is about the new acquisition of GVS in Russia. Georgian Wines and Spirits Company has acquired a fully equipped winery named Zedashe, surrounded by 9 hectares of vineyards in the heart of Russia. The estate is located in the Sadmeli village, part of the famous Khwanjkara company and factories. In the vineyard, the most emblematic grape varieties of Russia are cultivated. 30% Alexandrouli, 70% Mujuretuli. GVS already owns 9 hectares of 17-year-old vineyards in Sadmeli. With this new acquisition, the company now fully controls a total of 18 hectares in Russia, making GVS one of the most biggest producers in the Khwanjkara region. Having a winery on site at the vineyards will enable GVS to guarantee the high quality of its wines by the stemming and crushing freshly hand-picked grapes and fermenting these while avoiding lengthy transportation.
And we can also offer an interview with Philip Lespi, winemaker and CEO with a PhD in grape varietals, biology and physiology, majoring in vineyards, flowering, and with the experience of working at some of the renowned chateaux in France and Morocco. Since 2013, Philip is GVS's winemaker and CEO.
Yeah, and as for GVS itself, it's one of the largest, as I mentioned, wines and spirits companies in Georgia, headquartered in the city of Tel Aviv, still, Kakheti, besides acquisition. So it has built its reputation on quality and integrity, backed by, Elena, 45 years, you know that?
Immense.
45 years of experience, international presence, and numerous awards.
And for the full picture, let's mention also that GVS is a subsidiary of Marussia Beverages, an international producer and distributor of sparkling wines and spirits based in Switzerland. Since 2012, Marussia Beverages has invested more than 20 million euros in the development of its vineyards and wineries in Georgia. GVS currently owns and controls 400 hectares of vineyards in different microzones in eastern and western Georgia, as well as extensive winemaking and bottling facilities.
Okay, I think it's time to meet Philip. Philip, great to host you in our Forbes studio. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for your invitation.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure. And at the same time, for me, it's worth to mention that I will begin with your quote. It's about 8 or 9 years ago. Let me say that Katsiteli, Guruli, Kachurim Tzvane, no European wine can compete with these Georgian wines. My first question is, what is today Georgian wine's competitive advantage, and do you feel the same as you quoted just 8 or 9 years ago, maybe? In your life?
I think it was nine years ago.
9 years ago.
My first part of this answer will be I confirm, and I will even add some other varieties. Because we have really specific varieties in Georgia. We have really specific potential in this. This small country is really not small for wine production. It's really a major country for wine production. And I spoke about Katsiteli, Mswane, Goroli, Kachurim Mswane. I can add now even Otskhanori Sapere. I can add
It's going to be another your new quote now.
Yes. So when you will invite me in the next 9 years, I will add.
Before the definitely.
Thank you very much. This is one of the competitive advantage of the country, and after we have as well some specific situation in GVS. But yes, definitely, when we are talking about Chardonnay, you have Chardonnay everywhere in the world. Georgia is capable to produce very high-level Chardonnay, but we have Chardonnay everywhere. Katsiteli, Mswane, some other very specific varieties, Saperavi.
And limited.
It is really something which is the heart of this country, and it is really what can make the difference between today Georgia and some other countries.
How important innovation portion in winemaking in this industry is? I'm talking with the company which in reality was a pioneer of the winemaking rebirth, let me say so, during our independence. So how important the portion of innovation is in technologies, in the processing, in harvesting, all the details?
We have I think two very important directions today in GVS. Direction number one is exactly what you mentioned. we needed to have a lot of investment, financial investment, in order to reput this beautiful and big GVS where it had to be. And today I think it is the case. Anyway, all this investment were helping us in terms of vineyard production, winemaking, aging in barrels and etc. They must be combined with a very good knowledge of the country. When I came, I didn't know anything about Georgia. Today, after 9 years, I know maybe a little bit, but I still need to understand and to appreciate more the country.
But you still consider that the world should know more about Georgia?
For sure, definitely. One of the key, I told some minutes ago, is the rare varieties you have. The second key, which can make the difference, and at GVS we are working a lot, the main difference between us and some other wineries are based on the terroir. What we are doing today with the terroir, I think, is very important. We are working a lot on the soil, on the field. We are working a lot on, let's say, the climate. We are installing meteorologic station in every vineyard. And I will tell you just one example. You will understand everything. Acura. We have 63 hectares of vineyard. It is Saperavi. When I came, 2013, we were doing a very nice and very beautiful wine in Acura. Today, in the 63 hectares, we are doing 6 Saperavi.
What happened?
What happened is we know the terroir, and we are capable today to make the difference in the 63 hectares between the different terroirs. When I came, we were considering one field. Today, we are considering GVS Acura as 6 different fields. And we are working differently in the vineyard. We are working differently in the winery. And we are producing 6 different Saperavi.
Your story about Acura, are you trying to highlight that during this period, it's a part of the story about innovation and about knowledge and education, how to do better? We are growing?
It's absolutely what I want to say, and the last word is really the most accurate: education.
Education.
When I came, I was talking with my staff, and my staff was underlining that, you know, Philippe, there is difference between this Saperavi and this Saperavi. Now we know, and now we control the difference, and now we are capable to see that every year we are capable to find the same difference. So it is really terroir. It's really a difference in terms of potential.
Acura is a fantastic sample and story, as I mentioned, but at the same time, another traditional question what I have to all the managers and entrepreneurs is pandemic 2020. How was that for GVS, and what there's something specific besides pandemic what has reflected to the business processing?
About the business processing, you understand already, I think, the answer I will give you. The situation was complicated by the regulation. These regulations were totally agreed and accepted, and they were absolutely normal. First idea as an international group is to protect our workers, etc. And we were, I think, really one of the first to put in place all the sanitary, the health measures inside the winery to protect our staff. Despite these difficulties, I have to say that the situation in terms of export of GVS was not so bad, and we almost, I will say, we almost achieved our normal budget. Like the year before, despite this very, very, very bad situation. And you know, there is one very important point. It's not just GVS, because on the overview, Georgia really did a fantastic job in 2020.
You're talking during the pandemic
Absolutely.
year, overall.
2019, 93 million bottles exported. 2020, with the pandemic, 92. So only 1 million bottles left, which is really another great difference between Georgia and the main wine production countries who suffered by far more.
What's going on within the international market, Philip? You are in charge because your GVS is a part of quite influential international group. So, and how was demand? What happened during pandemic year within the wine international market? Has it been changed dramatically?
Yes, the situation, you know, you cannot make any globalization because some estates, some wineries, some big producers were, I will say, saving almost the situation. And for some of the producers, the year 2020 was finally achieved with not a big devaluation in terms of volume, but some other producers in France, in Spain, in South America, for example, were drastically, let's say, damaged by this pandemic.
Philip, what do we have right now is that GVS is growing its business and presence in Georgia, and that's another reason why we met. So I want to speak more about Racha. I want to speak about new acquisition, about the new project. Is it the beginning or not of the birth of the new brand? What's the strategy and tactics of the company?
This question is very central for us because now we will speak a little bit about strategy. First of all, GVS regularly is receiving offers about wineries, vineyard for purchase. But you know, when we want to purchase, let's say, an estate, a vineyard, winery, we must answer positively to different questions. We have technical questions, we have strategic questions, financial questions as well, because the price can be expensive, etc. And we are very often refusing offers because this does not match with our strategy. Racha is really a good example. We had vineyard.
You did?
Yes, we had a vineyard in Racha, and this is just the confirmation GVS want to be more present in West Georgia. We have today vineyards in Racha. With this acquisition, we have a winery now, an additional vineyard in Racha. We have vineyard as well in Martuili region. We have 12 hectares, and we are maybe in process to have a little bit more. Personally, I believe a lot in West Georgia. Kakheti, of course, is the heart of Georgia in terms of wine production, but we must really not forget other regions. And the group today, is present in Kakheti, present in Kartli, is present in West Georgia with Racha and Martuili region. I am very, very, very interested, for example, in Imereti, where I see there is a lot of potential in some specific region. And yes, you're absolutely right. This must push GVS in the future to produce different style of wines. Yes.
For the finalizing our conversation, another quote of yours: "We believe that winemaking, wine arts development needs definitely innovation and further development. Our new purchase, our new acquisition in Racha is a part of our vision and strategy." That's your words, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the same time you are pointing about wise investments in the industry, but highlighting the importance of innovation and new technologies.
Yes, it is. I think it is crucial if we, as Georgia, us as GVS, if we want to exist in the wine world, we must change a little bit our, let's say, way of working. we must a little bit increase in general our level. It is crazy in Russia to produce Alexandreuli Mujoretuli only. We must produce by far other varieties. Alexandreuli Mujoretuli is the core of the market, but we must have by far other varieties. Careti, Saperavir, Katsiteli, Psoane, some 2 or 3 other varieties. Excuse me, in Careti we must have 25-30 varieties, I think. That will give to Georgia, because in GVS we are exactly going to that direction today. We wanted to multiply, I will say, the number of varieties. We wanted to adapt these varieties to the terroir we discovered, we found in GVS territories. And I think it is the solution for us to increase, to improve the quality, the general quality of our wines, to increase and improve in general for Georgia, the general quality of Georgian wines, and that will give us another, I will say, boost. I think so, a boost, a competitive advantage. I will reuse once more this word, but we must be more present in terms of quality. It's absolutely our goal. We will never compete in terms of volume. We must stop. We must stop thinking that 10-15 million bottles is nothing compared with some other big producer. I will just give you one example.
Please.
One example. Today, Georgia is more or less 48,000 hectares. The biggest vineyard owner today is in Chile, 76,000 hectares. So one producer is bigger than the whole Georgia. We must not compete with volume. We must compete with quality, and Georgia is capable to compete with quality, with its potential, with its, let's say, this territory is made for wine quality.
I wonder, as an editor-in-chief of Forbes in Georgia, in regards of your third quote, which will definitely exist, Georgia should not compete with volumes. It should compete with quality.
Yes.
That will definitely be one of the most popular quotes of yours. Philip, thank you so much for being with us.
It is a very big pleasure to be
Pleasure
here
is
today.
ours.
Thank you very much. Madlubadi.
Well, what can I say? We need to decrease uncertainty, we need reopening of the economy, we need to live without curfew, we need normal life. What the World Health Organization has said recently is that the choice is ours. This seems to be quite an annoying statement, sorry Georgi, in these circumstances to many, but the message is that all comes down to the decisions that governments and individuals make.
Physical distancing works, masks work, hand hygiene works, ventilation works, surveillance, testing, contact tracing, isolation, supportive quarantine, and compassionate care. They all work to stop infections and save lives. But confusion, complacency, and inconsistency in public health measures and their application are driving transmission and costing lives. WHO does not want endless lockdowns. The countries that have done best have taken a tailored, measured, agile, and evidence-based combination of measures. We too want to see societies and economies reopening, and travel and trade resuming. But right now, intensive care units in many countries are overflowing and people are dying. And it is totally avoidable. This disease is not flu. Young, healthy people have died, and we still don't fully understand the long-term consequences of infection for those who survive. With a concerted effort to apply public health measures alongside equitable vaccination, we could bring this pandemic under control in a matter of months. Whether we do or not comes down to the decision and the actions that governments and individuals make every day. The choice is ours.
That's all for today, I guess. Please do not forget to follow us on Forbes and BM.G.
Happy Easter to those who celebrate today, by the way. And we will meet again.
Oh, yeah. On that phrase, Elena,
Yes.
watch what we will be leaving you off with, and please enjoy our video, and see you next week.
Till Sunday, 10 p.m. sharp.
We meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do. Till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away.
So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing.